Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are joined once again by Raquel Williams. Excited to have her back here, our rapid transformational therapist, and so much more from beautiful Napa, California. Welcome back to the show. And again, also a life coach, too. She's got a lot of hats that she wears. How are you?
I'm well, Jill. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you back here. And for those new timers, would you mind just telling us a little bit about what you do before we start today?
Yeah, well, I'm a rapid transformational therapist and life coach, as you mentioned. And I actually also mix in some other tools with that type of work. But really, I help people deal with any type of belief systems or stuck emotions or trauma that's impacting their life. So really just getting to the root of the problem and helping either their body or, like I said, their mindset in the process.
Perfect. Well, today I know you wanted to get a little deeper into our discussion. We've learned a lot about you, the types of people you can help, and what RTT can help so many with, which is a lot. What did you have in mind for us today?
Well, I really wanted to dive into insomnia and body pain, and even specifically fibromyalgia. I know that is a big thing that people are dealing with today, especially after the whole COVID and anxiety and everything else. People are really finding a lot of these issues happening, but they don't understand why.
And what is fibromyalgia to start with?
So fibromyalgia, years ago, they used that, I guess that term or that phrase when they didn't understand what was happening with somebody. And so only recently, I would say in the last, I'm going to say 5 years, maybe in the last 5 to 7 years, is the medical side of things really recognizing it and putting people on disability for it. And it's become this whole big thing. But for years, when I was diagnosed with it, it was kind of an umbrella term that was used when they didn't have an answer for you. And for me specifically, and I mentioned the first time we spoke, Jill, that, one day I just stopped sleeping. And I didn't understand how or why. I saw the sun come up, and I remember saying to my husband, I didn't fall asleep last night.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was random, right? We all have those goofy nights, I suppose, where you just don't sleep well, but I didn't sleep at all. I literally saw the sun come up, and I just thought, okay, that was weird.
Yeah, of course.
But then the next night it happened again.
Wow.
And it wasn't that I wasn't even falling asleep at night. I couldn't take a nap, which was so that was really strange to me because my body just wouldn't shut down. So at this point, I'm starting to get really worried because I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? I'm trying to call my doctor, and they had, they wanted to get me in 2 weeks. And I'm thinking, 2 weeks? I can't wait 2 weeks. And so then I called my OBG. Maybe it's hormonal. Let's get me in there. They had another week waiting list. At this point, I'm 3 or 4 days in, and I'm a wreck. Like, something's really happening here. I am not falling asleep, and I can't nap. Like, my body's not shutting down. And I don't think I was conveying it very well over the phone to the people I was trying to book appointments with. Cause like, well, we can get you in next week. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. So I ended up just going to the emergency room, and they ran a bunch of tests on me, came up blank, and basically told me that I needed to book an appointment with my primary care, that they would forward some paperwork and hopefully they would get me in sooner. And there began this journey of insomnia. But the interesting thing, Jill, is that after seeing many specialists, including Stanford, Stanford. Now, statistically, we're told that I think I read it was 50 to 70 million people that are suffering in the US with insomnia. And I think it was over 43 million that are actually using medications like Ambien and Lunesta to get some sleep, which I did too. But honestly, Ambien.
Oh, don't mention Ambien. It was the biggest nightmare of my life. Things were
Really?
melting. People were melting. I was eating in the middle of the night, not realizing it. I was cooking, not realizing, leaving the pots on. Ambien was prescribed to me. I used to get up at 2 in the morning for work. So I had to learn to go to bed at 3, 4 in the afternoon. Impossible. Ambien was the worst. Did you have any hallucinational experiences and craziness like that?
That is nuts. They told me that was a possibility, that there could be some sleepwalking.
Yeah.
I could get up and do things and not be aware. So you actually experienced that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And if I looked at you right now, you would look like you were gray and melting. It was bizarre in the bushes and trees. And then I'd get up and eat in the middle of the night and I wouldn't even know. There'd be crumbs in my bed, like a bag of potato chips.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts. No, I can't say I had that experience.
All right, good.
I mean, it did offer me relief initially, right? But only 4 hours. It was like a hard, like 4 hours, and then I was awake and that was it. But I got off of Ambien because I did a little research because my memory started going.
Wow.
Like I could not remember anything. I was I was foggy, I thought, because I wasn't sleeping anyways, but it's a lot of brain fog. I couldn't remember anything. I started doing research on it, and it actually came up as one of the main drugs to destroy your brain, like early death and all this craziness. And I'm thinking, yeah, no, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
So, but I was on Ambien, I would say a good year before all that started happening. I mean, I was desperate. I needed to get some sleep. Yeah. But even when I went to Stanford, they did a whole sleep study where they put the electrodes all over my head and my body. I had to be there at 7, and they kept me overnight. I really was expecting some answers. Like, this is Stanford, right? And I can't sleep. It's like, it's beyond can't sleep. I'm not shutting down. There's a buzzing going on.
Did you actually sleep that night in the hospital?
No.
Okay.
No. And here's what they told me. Okay, Raquel. So the next morning they said, okay, Raquel, so here's what we saw. You never really fell asleep. And when you did, it was about 45 minutes, but it wasn't REM. You never went into REM. And I'm sitting there looking at them like, are you kidding me? I could have told you that. Like,
yeah, I'm telling you, I can't sleep. So now you need to monitor me sleep. But the point is I can't sleep. So why am I doing sleep study? Okay.
Right. I had no idea that the definition of a sleep study
meant
was literally,
because they should have drugged you then. But then again, maybe it wouldn't work. But oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. I left really deflated that day because, like, I could have told you that. That was nothing. So super disappointed. I leave there, no answers again. And insomnia is so hard, Jill, because if you've experienced it, you can't function. You are, I mean, I was shaky. I have 3 kids, I'm trying to be a mom, I'm a wife, business. I'm trying to live life and I'm exhausted.
How long did this last for?
Oh, this was 12 years. This was 12 years. So
only relief you had was taking Ambien or a drug to put you out?
So what happened was, yes and no. So Ambien was like those first few years where I just had to, I didn't know what was going on. And I don't like to take drugs. I don't like to take really anything.
The sleep, you can't function. No.
But I was desperate, right? So I took it. Once I got off of it, I had to find other methods. So, I started doing herbs. I started doing all different types of things to just help relax my body. Didn't really help me sleep. After I had started to do some of the work I'm talking about, not to the depths that I did when it finally started to resolve, but it got a little better where I was getting, I would say probably after 5 years, I started getting about 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours without taking something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you experience not sleeping for that amount of time, like my body was so physically exhausted, but the strangest thing with me was that my brain was awake. So I don't know if you can imagine, you're awake, you're like zing, but your body is like, oh my gosh, I can't move.
Yeah.
It was a very strange thing going on. And at the same time, the fibromyalgia was is it a pain for me? It was in my limbs, and it was such a bad
Ache?
It's this ache. It's this bone crushing ache. It's hard to explain. Literally, I couldn't put a sheet over my body. It felt like that sheet weighed 1,000 pounds.
Oh,
That's how bad. And then my lower back was so stiff and it would go out on me. So it's like, all this sounds like, oh my God, how'd you live? Yeah, exactly. How did I live? It was bad. Most times I would just lay because I couldn't move. I just couldn't move. And so every time I went to talk to somebody about what was happening, I got done with blood tests and MRIs and x-rays and specialists and all that because nothing was giving me any answers.
Yeah.
But fibromyalgia, first, there's so many people out there. And I remember a doctor sending me to a fibromyalgia Facebook page because she said, I really want you to see that you're not alone in this. And she thought it would be helpful for me. And although it really did open my eyes because hundreds of people, especially women, that are going through this and explaining in detail what I was feeling. So in that aspect, yeah, it did make me feel like I wasn't alone because I thought I was alone because I didn't understand what the heck was happening to me. Yeah. Right. So I was able to see, okay, I'm not the anomaly. This is happening to a lot of people out there. And this is why I really wanted to talk about this today, because I know people are suffering with insomnia. They're suffering with fibromyalgia, with the lower back stuff or the back pains that they don't understand. And at the end of the day, Jill, after years of doing everything to try to figure it out, it all came down to stuck emotions. Pain in your body. And it's the craziest thing because we're not taught this. And I think we should be. I think there's a class that should happen where we understand the body-mind connection and emotions. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I love him. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but he says that emotions are the language of the body. And I love that because we get so used to feeling a certain way, right? There as a child, there's a certain energy, there's a certain way of living our lives, whether it's, an angry household, an alcoholic household, even if it's a lot of joy, right? Some kids, right there, it's a feeling, it's the emotion that ends up getting programmed into your DNA, essentially. So when emotions get stuck, when you've got years of a certain feeling or emotion and your belief is always tied to how you feel, right? If you think a thought that makes you happy, how are you going to feel?
Yeah.
Right. But if you're thinking thoughts that, let's say there's a lot of anxiety or depression, or you don't even really know what you're thinking because subconscious thoughts we're not aware of, but that's tied to the emotion or the feeling in our body. So once I was able to work with somebody that actually helped me to start releasing, and I tell people it's like having a thing of water. Once it's full, it has nowhere else to go. So when you start to experience, the stiff neck, the shoulder blades, the lower back that keeps going out on you, or fibromyalgia, where it gets like it did with me, where it gets to the point that your body says, I'm done. I can't take any more. And the crazy thing as well, I do want to mention this, is we ignore so much.
Yeah.
Right. And until we get knocked flat on our ass, and excuse me, can I say that?
Of course you can. Yeah.
Until we get, really knocked out, where we're forced to pay attention, we just don't.
Yeah.
So I remember about a year before I stopped sleeping and all this happened, I would be blow drying my hair and my arm, it hurt so bad. The blow dryer felt like it weighed 100 pounds. But I didn't know what it was. I was just like, oh my God. And it would be exhausting for me to just blow dry my hair or to curl my hair. It's like I was in the gym lifting weights and I'm thinking, God, why is this? But I ignored it.
Yeah.
As we do. And so a year or so later, when all of this happened, I realized that was my body talking to me. Our body will talk to us. It'll give us signs. It'll show us that something's going on. But are we paying attention? And so for those people that are suffering with either fibromyalgia or that back pain, or the neck, or whatever it is, that you're going to the chiropractor, you're doing all the right things, and it's just not resolving, there's just something more there. There's something more there. And when I worked with, and his name was Michael, and he started to help my body release, Jill, it was almost instant that I started to feel this relief, like in my limbs. And it was insane. I had lived with a stabbing pain on the left side of my head, literally felt like someone was taking an ice pick to the left side of my head. And no one could tell me what it was.
Yeah.
After my first session of helping my body just release, I guess if you know those ice chests where you open the plug and the water just starts to come out. If you it's like, if I had to imagine or try to give you a picture, that's what it felt like. It's like he started working with me, and it just felt like my body just started letting go. And when it did, the first thing I noticed was the stabbing in the left side of my head just went. I had asked doctors for years to help me understand that pain. They did MRIs in my head. They did all kinds of stuff to try to understand, what am I feeling? Nobody could tell me. Isn't that interesting? I mean, talk about that stuck emotions. I think my body was just at the limit. And, anyone suffering with pains that they don't understand, I just want to give them hope that when there are no medical explanations, and when people or doctors or chiropractors, who are all great and have their place, but when it's not working, that's just your body. That's your body, in what I believe, that's your body at capacity. Like, there's something that you need to address, right? It needs to be released. Your body is it's capped.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we're also more than halfway through. I just want to remind everyone how we can reach out to you.
Yes. Website is raquelrwilliams.com, and that's RAQUEL. Phone number is 415-347-6861. Okay.
So now, after all these years, then you finally now realizing what this all is. Now, did you seek RTT?
So RTT was the second part of my healing journey.
Okay, got it.
First part was this releasing of learning how to release, or it's known as energy work as well, right? When you stuck emotions can have it's energy. Everything's energy. We're energy. So when you're able to let your body let go of that energy, then your body can begin to heal, whatever it is, whether it's pain. There's all kinds of studies on different things when it comes to organs and lupus and cancer and all different kinds of things, right? It's really amazing to me. But once you can release that energy, then the body can actually do what it's supposed to do.
Interesting. You poor thing. And just curious now, fast forward, are you healed from this, or is this
still? Oh yeah. I mean, I totally got my life back.
Okay.
Totally got my life back. I mean, I couldn't work out. It was a good, at least 12 years I couldn't work out. There was no way. I didn't have the capacity. My body, I had a certain amount of energy every day, and I had to go towards being a mom and a little bit of business and being a wife. But today I can work out. I take my dog on 2-mile walks pretty much every day. Yeah, totally different. I actually wake up feeling like a human being. It's
amazing.
Yeah. And that's I have a heart, Jill, for people that have insomnia.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
I get it. And I just want those people to know that you don't have to live that way. You don't have to live like that. There is an answer. Even when you're told there's not an answer, there is an answer. And it's just getting to what it is for you. The body's going to respond if it's either chemical, right? So there's either chemicals going on in your body, there's a nutrition deficiency happening in your body, and those are all physical, right? So sometimes people will do detoxes and that'll do it for them. Or they're very deficient in their nutrition and that'll do it for them. So it's not one-stop shop. I'm not saying it's always emotional, but I do believe that there is an emotional component. And when those physical things aren't working for you, don't feel like there aren't any answers, because then at that point, you're probably dealing with a stuck emotion and a belief system, right? Because we've been talking about the subconscious mind, and they really go hand in hand. Our belief systems and our emotions. And let me share this with you. You know, early on, I don't know if you've ever heard of Caroline Leaf, Dr. Caroline Leaf.
No.
She's a scientist of the mind, and I absolutely love her. But early on in this journey for me, my brother called me and said, "Hey, I came across this woman and I think you should really check her out." And I thought, okay, right. So I went on and I started listening to her stuff, and I was amazed, because this is the kind of thing I think that we need to be taught. What she teaches, Jill, is that when we are thinking any type of negative emotions, I want you to imagine a tree that's just dead. The branches are dead, burnt, broken looking, just very decrepit, right?
Yeah.
Any type of negative emotions over time, that's what happens to our brain.
Yeah.
And then she shows a picture of like this beautiful, lush palm tree. And that's the effect that love has, or positive emotions, on the brain. So when you're dealing with your mind going into this negative mode every day, all the time, it's created this pattern, then the brain starts to look like those branches that are dead.
Yeah.
And it literally affects, like, I think she said 14 different systems in the body.
Wow.
So if you're not aware that you're even doing this, and I'll give you a quick story, because this was one of my aha moments early on in my journey, when she started talking about how the brain works and how negative thoughts affect the brain and how it's a pattern. I had just taken a shower. I had gotten out of the shower and I was watching this and realized that moment that in the shower, what I just did, I had done what felt like my entire life. Now I'm going to share something, and it's going to sound crazy. I have to believe I'm not the only person in the world that would do this, but this was an unconscious thing that I would do. So my mind would think of a very horrible story. It could be a real one that happened to me that it would just play, or a made up one. And I would go on this journey until I got myself to the point where I was sobbing, crying. And then I would wipe my face and keep going about my business. I wasn't even aware that I was doing this. This is how nuts. So when I came across Caroline Leaf and she started to explain what happens to the mind, and this light went off, I thought, wait. Like, all of a sudden I became aware of this habit or pattern that had been going on my entire life that would elicit a huge amount of fear inside of me. So the story, whatever it was that was playing, would elicit this huge amount of fear. And then I'd be crying and then I'd shake it off. And I told my husband, I feel like I'm a junkie. It's almost like a fix.
Like an addiction, but you don't even you don't realize what you're doing.
Had no clue that I was doing this. And Joe Dispenza does a beautiful job explaining scientifically what I was doing, that essentially my mind, heart, and body had gotten into a rhythm. So what happened to me as a child had elicited so much fear. It was like a stamp in my DNA of fear. And that became the rhythm or the song of my heart and mind and body. So even when nothing fearful was happening in my life, my mind and heart would elicit it. Yes, so that I would feel it, because that became the program. Wow. Tell me that's not nuts. So your mind, Jill, your mind doesn't know if you're making something up or if it's real, or if it's happening right now or not.
Wow.
Every time your mind replays it, it's as if it's happening right now. So what's happening to my body at that point?
Wow. All that damage, all that trauma, all that emotional. Oh, roller coaster.
Over and over and over for years. We don't even know that we're doing it to ourselves. We're literally programmed where your mind and your body now are just going to do it for you. That's crazy.
And you just like in a trance. There's plenty of times I could think about that, going to the shower, driving somewhere, not getting there, and I have these thoughts and this. I don't have a pattern of them, but you never know. I got to think now. I went off the air, but you're right. Your mind goes to a place. I didn't realize that, but your body is thinking it's now. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not, or it's happening now. Interesting.
And the more that you do it, no matter what the story is that's happening, it could be me getting in a fight with my husband and just replaying it over and over. And he comes home that night and I'm like, leave me alone. I'm irritated with him. Poor guy. He didn't do anything to me. But I'm completely irritated because I've been taking that little trip in my mind and not even really aware that that's what I was doing.
Wow.
I know. It's completely crazy, but I share that to say that
in a good way. It's not crazy. It's actually normal. It sounds crazy, but it's not. But it's a real thing. And the fact that you're talking about it, I appreciate that you're opening up to everyone and you're here to help people, which is super important.
Well, yeah, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that because really that's what it is. I come across so many people that are suffering. They're not sleeping. They're hurting. Their back's going out, whatever it is. And they don't know why. They honestly don't know why. And then I start working with them and all this clarity because I realize, oh my God, I didn't realize I was doing that. I didn't realize that happened in my life that many years ago was affecting me today. I didn't realize. Because we don't. How can we?
No. Well,
we're not taught this. We're not taught to understand this.
Yeah. And how do we reach out to? We got a minute left. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So Raquel, RAQUEL, rwilliams.com is my website. Phone number is 415-347-6861.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. And
thank
you for the conversation again. And we'll connect again soon. And sorry, I didn't get your notes. They're going to work on that. We'll talk about it later. Okay. You have a great day. Thank you.
You too. All right. Take care, Jill. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.